In this video we return to Warhammer the Old World and try out another scenario at 500 points. And once again the purpose of the video is to tell an entertaining story featuring conflicts between two characters. The scenario will be Breakpoint, or the Doom of Odo Todmire as it is referred to in the rulebook. This is a character-driven conflict between Beastmen and the Empire, so we decide to use these two armies to refight the battle. In the Breakpoint scenario, the armies will fight until one side is reduced to 1/4 of its total unit strength or less, at which point their opponent claims victory. So let's take a look at the armies. The first army to take to the field are the Beastmen. In the Old World, the Beastmen remain a fast, hard-hitting, melee-themed army list, but with limited options for resilience or force projection. The Warherd is led by Ugly Pig Joe, a ferocious beast lord on foot. He is accompanied by Haga, a Beastman shaman also on foot, and together they lead 9 Vestigor, 14 Gore armed with additional hand weapons, and 10 Hounds. Taking to the field to repel the Beastmen is the army of the Empire. In the Old World, the Empire is still an everyman's army, featuring hordes of light infantry, powerful artillery, and dashing knights. Our army is led by Graf Vogeljaeger, a captain of the Empire on barded warhorse with full plate armour. He is assisted by Helmut Feuerbach, a wizard skilled in battle magic, and leads 20 state halberdiers with full command, 5 knights, and a great cannon, Der Dickermann. The battle is set along the forest road to Fassberg in Middenland, where the Graf's forces have been called in to evict the Beastman tribe that is preying on local travellers. The battlefield is set up to represent the road to Fassberg through the Drakwald forest. There are 2 rocky outcrops which we treat as hills that can be entered only by infantry. There are 2 woods which we will treat as difficult ground. The road itself is open ground, and there is 1 small stream which also counts as difficult ground. The battlefield is 120 by 90 centimetres in size, and the armies must deploy with at least 18 inches between them. The Empire hug their board edge while the Beastmen deploy deeper into the board. In this game, the Beastmen will withdraw if they're reduced to a unit strength of less than 8, and the Empire less than 9. The Empire deploy their army close together on the board edge within the General's command range. Graf Vogeljaeger deploys amongst his knights, ready to lead the charge from the front. And the knights occupy the right flank of the army, ready to wet their lances in Beastman blood. This unit is the hammer component to the army. In the centre are 20 halberdiers with full command. Their ranked formation plus the halberds should give them the edge against the Beastmen and provide a solid anvil. Helmut Feuerbach deploys in the centre of the army, and for his spell he has selected Arcane Urgency, which might be useful to counter the Beastmen's speed. Der Dickermann deploys on the road. This great cannon will provide excellent long-range firepower, but it is vulnerable to attack by the faster elements of the Beastman army. On the Beastman side, the Hounds have deployed on the right flank. They are fast and fierce, but suffer with poor leadership, so their role is to counter the cannon. In the centre is the Gore Herd with full command and additional hand weapons. With their superior stats, they should be able to take on and beat the Empire Halberdiers. They are joined by the Shaman Haga, who has chosen Viletide as his Beastman spell. Between the Shaman's leadership and their warband rule, the Beastmen should stay in the fight. On the Beastman left flank are the Vestigor armed with great weapons to counter the Knights. They are led by Ugly Pig Joe, the Beast Lord, whose superior profile should be more than a match for the Empire General. With all units now deployed, the battle can begin. The Beastmen win the first turn and immediately race all their units forward towards the Empire lines. The Vestigor march straight through the woods unhampered by the dense foliage, whilst the Gore secure the open ground in the centre. In the magic phase, the Viletide spell fails to cast. In the Empire turn, Graf Vogeljaeger orders his men to hold the line and soften up the enemy with the cannon. Der Dicke Man duly fires grape shots at the Chaos Hounds, and 2 of the foul beasts are no more, but this is insufficient to trigger a panic test. In Beastman turn 2, the Hounds get their revenge by charging straight into combat with the cannon. Meanwhile, the Beastman units advance across the open ground, trying to bring the Empire units within charge range. In combat, the poisoned fangs of the Warhounds easily dispatch the 3 cannon crew. Although the nearby units easily pass their panic tests, the Hounds then overrun into the startled wizard. In Empire turn 2, the Knights charge the Bestigor, while the Halberdiers charge the Gore. Graf Vogeljaeger issues a challenge, and the Beast Lord accepts.
I'll show you all the true power of Beastman.
I am ready! Oh, my head bone!
Graf Vogeljaeger swiftly brings down his warhammer upon the Beastman's crown, inflicting a large dent. Enraged by the wound, Ugly Pig Joe hacks back at the Graf's armoured form, breaking bones beneath. The lances of the Knights strike true against the armoured forms of the Bestigor, and 3 are slain by the impact. The Halberdiers and 1 Knight also crash into the Gore herd. Targeting the character and the champion, they take out the Beastman's leader and also inflict a wound on Hager. The Bestigor now fight back, and 1 Knight is toppled from his horse by the heavy blow of a great axe. Despite the frenzied hacking of their blades upon the Halberdiers' armour, the Gores fail to inflict any damage on the Halberdiers. As all 4 units were engaged in one big melee, this is worked out as one combat engagement. The Empire have won the combat by several points, so both Beastmen units must take a break test. The Bestigor test first using Ugly Pig Joe's leadership, but they fall back in good order. Meanwhile, the Gore have to give ground, and they are followed up by the Halberdiers. Elsewhere, things do not go the Empire's way, and Helmut Feuerbach is quickly taken down by the Hounds. The Hounds fail their restraint and reform test and run off the board, and they will re-enter in the remaining moves phase of their next turn. In Beastman turn 3, the Hounds return to the battlefield and sniff out their prey, wheeling towards the rear of the Halberdiers. In the combat phase, the challenge continues between Ugly Pig Joe and Graf Vogeljaeger.
I have you now.
Wrong.
Another hammer blow leaves Ugly Pig Joe wounded, whilst his return attacks fail to penetrate the thick armour of the Graf. However, as the Bestigor use their free reform when falling back in good order to form a line formation, they now have far more attacks against the Knights. The Knights suffer from rubber lance syndrome in their follow-up charge and fail to cause any damage to the Bestigor, who slay 3 in return. The Knights are forced to give ground. In the centre, the Halberdiers successfully slay the Shaman Hager and kill another Beastman. For their part, the Beastmen do kill 2 Halberdiers, but due to the Halberdiers' superior ranks, they win the combat. The Beastmen take a break test which they fail and flee. With few other Empire troops now remaining, the Halberdiers decide to chase the fleeing Beastmen, hoping to move far enough away from the Hounds at their rear and the Bestigor at their flank. The Halberdiers succeed in catching the fleeing Beastmen, cutting them all down. Exhilarated by the slaughter of their foes, the victorious Halberdiers turn around and start to head back towards their general. However, in the combat phase, disaster strikes, and Graf Vogeljaeger is taken down by Ugly Pig Joe. The remaining knight fails to kill off any more Bestigor, and although he is not killed himself, he is forced to flee. The halberdiers are too far away to panic, but the knight rolls poorly on his flee move and is caught and killed by the Bestigor. With only the halberdiers left to defend Fassberg, things are looking grim for the Empire. With the scent of blood in their nostrils, the remaining Beastman units now close in for the kill. The Hounds and Bestigor advance on the hapless halberdiers, expanding their formations into lines to gain maximum attacks. With nothing left to lose, the halberdiers declare one last charge against the Hounds. The risky charge succeeds and the halberdiers crash into their canine opponents.
Holy! You look at the size of them!
In combat, the halberdiers slay one hound for the loss of 2 men in return. The disciplined ranks and standard of the halberdiers win out, and they force the hounds to take a break test, which they fail as they are unable to benefit from Ugly Pig Joe's inspiring presence. Due to the halberdiers' superior numbers, the hounds are forced to flee. However, the hounds do not run far, and they are quickly caught and routed by the victorious halberdiers. With the loss of the hounds, the Beastman army is reduced to its break point, and it must flee the field. At the end of the game, my opponent and I both agreed that this game was a lot of fun, with several back and forth moments where the balance of power swung between each army. We both felt that this game demonstrated how just taking core troops and characters without magic items can still lead to a very enjoyable game. And while Ugly Pig Joe can claim victory in his challenge, it was the disciplined ranks of the Empire halberdiers that won through in the end.